China's plan for tackling COVID is looking stupider and stupider. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark. You should be using a VPN like Surfshark to protect yourself whenever you go online, especially if you want to go online to learn about what's happening with COVID in China. Even though the rapid spread of Omicron is making it nearly impossible to contain, the Communist Party keeps going for a zero COVID policy because they refuse to back down. This article says health is the most important indicator of a happy life. Health is the number one. And other things are the zeros that follow. Without the one, more zeros are meaningless. Not too long ago, media reports across both China and the West were applauding China's pandemic prevention. It was called China's version of freedom in a topsy-turvy pandemic world. People said China's zero COVID policy holds lessons for other nations. But now, China's zero COVID policy is looking more and more like a gambling addiction. You're losing more than you're winning. And your inner voice tells you you're probably going to lose everything, but if you just keep going, you'll get lucky. Your family and friends are all worried about you, China, and they would tell you so if they weren't so scared you'd arrest them. Take Shanghai, which we did a whole episode on last week. China deployed 2,000 People's Liberation Army soldiers on top of armed police to control the borders in Shanghai. Yes, you heard me right. Soldiers and armed police. I feel like they heard the phrase, fight the virus, and then took it way too literally. That's a pretty stupid way to stop COVID. Of course, they're not really there to control COVID. They're there to control people. In addition, China is sending administrative personnel to Shanghai to enforce the lockdown. Local internet sources in Shanghai claimed that there may be tens of thousands or even 100,000 people from all over the country helping Shanghai. Yay, the Communist Party has sent people to help. Help Communist Party style. Like ripping people out of their homes to do PCR testing. Or pinning people down to do PCR testing. Remember, when they tackle people on the street, it's for their own safety. The same with chaining up people's doors to make sure they don't leave their apartment building. Or just soldering the door shut for a long-term solution. And to prove just how much authorities are helping, they're making sure to document heartwarming good deeds, like giving out groceries. Staged, but heartwarming. And while most people aren't allowed out of their homes, you need to make exceptions for volunteers who are especially patriotic. So on the one hand, you've got brutal authoritarian measures for controlling people and propaganda videos to frame it as helping. And on the other hand, you've also got just plain dumb, like swabbing the floor tiles to test for COVID, and disinfecting the escalator. That one escalator step definitely doesn't have COVID. Authorities have even begun doing COVID testing on cats, who are now definitely plotting the destruction of the human race, pigs, just in case they spread it to other Communist Party officials, chickens, in case COVID is transmitted through pecking, fish, yes, fish, at this point, why not? And even abalone, because they shouldn't be so shellfish. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if half of China's GDP is just people testing non-humans for COVID. Now, for some reason, people in China are becoming more and more vocal about the Chinese Communist Party's ridiculously stupid COVID policies. But police are here to refute those rumors. It's all about keeping people healthy. Not about silencing people and controlling information. Remember, health is number one. Everything else is zero. This past week, there was a trending story of a baby being stabbed to death during a PCR test. And the police ran their investigation. Spoiler alert, they said whoever posted the story was a liar and punished her for it. Police and volunteers are now going after anyone who speaks out of line on Chinese social media. And here's an entire brigade coming after a Shanghai resident who posted on social media.
说什么事？说什么事啊？
你们今天在网上发布了什么东西啊？
不是我们发布的，我们网上没发布。谁叫允义了？
Then they barge into his apartment and accuse him of having been kicked out of a WeChat group for saying something wrong. I feel like the stupidest thing about that whole encounter, though, is the guy holding a cigarette with his mask on. Anyway, when this latest wave of COVID began in March, the Chinese Communist Party began punishing local officials who failed to control it. Because according to state-run China Daily, China's dynamic clearing policy, that is, strict lockdowns to stop the spread of COVID, saves lives. Had the US and European countries adopted the same approach as China from the very beginning, millions of lives would have been saved, and the rampant spread of the virus would have been brought under control much earlier. And no one cares more about saving lives than the Chinese Communist Party. And this episode is sponsored by Surfshark. When you go online, everything you do is being tracked and logged by the websites you visit and your internet service provider, and in many cases, by the government. And if you're in an authoritarian country like China, and you post something to the internet that criticizes one of their policies, they can easily find out where you logged in from, and then send people to your home to threaten you. Citizens of nearly every country are being monitored constantly, and that's why no matter where you live, you should always be keeping your internet activity private, using a VPN, like Surfshark. Surfshark secures your data with top-of-the-line uncrackable encryption. And on top of that, Surfshark intentionally does not keep logs of what you do. In fact, one cool thing it does is keep a server network in the British Virgin Islands, where local laws allow Surfshark to not keep user data logs. So if you haven't checked it out yet, check out Surfshark. With just one account, you can connect as many devices as you want. So try it out now. Surfshark has a special deal that includes 83% off a 2-year plan plus 3 extra months for free. You can protect yourself for just $2.21 a month. Go to surfshark.com/uncensored and use the code UNCENSORED to secure this deal. The link is in the description below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.